Throughout its history, the Total War franchise has introduced and removed numerous game mechanics, visual styles, interface overhauls, and by and large, these have led to some rather great improvements, cleaning up the experience and improving the game as it's gone. However, there are certainly still some things now lost that shall be missed. These animations, granted from a gaming perspective, are essentially pointless and even become annoying when you've seen them enough, provided some much needed comic relief to an otherwise infuriating aspect of the game. If you've played the Total War series for any reasonable length of time, then you will likely have failed countless attempts at subterfuge, despite it even having a 90+% chance to succeed. Throughout the series, this horrendous occurrence at the hands of RNG would do nothing more than agitate the player. However, in the older days, having a little animation of your character totally ruining their chances, be it by running away from their dueling partner or having their leg mistaken for a soldier's mistress, provided a nice little humorous palate cleanser to offset those very frustrations. As each game and state of success had its own series of animations, it truly was a joy at the beginning to seek all of these out, to the point where even now you can find entire compilation videos of these animations. And though eventually you will begin to skip these, having seen many of them within a single campaign, when you return, say after a few months or a few years even, to play a new campaign, you will find yourself relishing the ability to enjoy these each and every time. And as such, even though later on we may well skip them, it was still something I truly miss and would really love to see again with some crazier, more hilarious inclusions to them. These nifty little vids gave an excellent chance to tease the new units you just recruited, while simultaneously acting as a mini tutorial as to how to use them. The excellent voiceovers gave a good idea of how these units work, identifying tactics, weaknesses, and strengths of each unit as you received them, meaning that a new player wouldn't be overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of guides and information available for each one of these games, and making each new unit easier to apply to combat, keeping the new information at the forefront of their mind, having only just received it, and now, no doubt, soon to use it. Aside from this excellent little intro, they also acted as a beautiful teaser, showing you just what the unit looks like in-game and tempting the player into wielding them as soon as possible. A controversial system that even I never truly understood nor particularly appreciated, naval combat was a strange and oft problemed component within the Total War franchise, with a myriad of balancing and AI issues found throughout its tenure. Despite this, its removal still somehow makes me sad. Yes, the AI would often bug out and sail merrily against the boundaries, split up and easy pickings. Yes, you could just ram everyone to death with transport ships rather than constructing legitimate naval vessels. And yes, most battles were long, drawn-out games of cat and mouse, but somehow, within all this, you could end up having not only glorious victories, but game-changing ones at that. From crushing defeats with your top general sunk to the bottom of the seas with nary a chance to defend themselves, to the skin of your teeth, victories that cut down the enemy's greatest force before it could even come ashore. These battles, despite all their problems, were still a great part of the Total War experience and forced new considerations and strategies for players. Though I never really got into the naval battles myself, I still truly miss them and yearn for the days of commanding an armada out to sea to slay the enemy's fleet. And where possible, even creating combined offensives, taking on the enemy via sea and land, calling in trebuchets, calling in marauders to assist in whatever way they could, even allowing you to besiege settlements and land units behind the walls. Yes, with plenty of damage from skirmishers, but nevertheless getting in and potentially opening the gate, or even just drawing your enemy's attention away to the shore, allowing you to get your siege equipment to the wall and all your soldiers in before they know what's happening. Though to some degree these aspects have remained in the game, they are definitely a pale imitation of their once prior glory. Creating armies without generals was a great system that unfortunately has been phased out. Though showing somewhat of a return, the classic method of producing troops to garrison your regions, or even creating entire armies to march upon your enemies, produced not only a variety of options available to the player, with your main force free to advance and conquer, as small policing units maintained order or took on weaker and easier targets. But it also saw many great moments of hard-fought battles resulting in captains gaining well-deserved promotions and taking the mantle of general, or even being brought into the family and offered positions as you deemed fit. All in all, it felt more immersive. Your control to bestow titles and gifts to a general you forged in the heat of battle personalized them in a way that is simply lacking from modern titles. The stories of a lowly Ashigaru captain becoming promoted to the general of a samurai army, marrying into the clan, made for an excellent tale for your friends. Promoting a sentimental aspect to a campaign that shan't quickly be forgotten. So though some parts of this mechanic have begun to re-emerge with captains once more becoming somewhat of a thing, it's certainly lacking from the prior and was something I have dearly missed ever since it was removed. Watchtowers and fortifications. Now I'm going to be honest, this definitely links more towards the Watchtowers, though fortifications was certainly a useful ability to quickly create a defensible position. This does somewhat exist in modern titles, though it definitely feels different to the prior. However, Watchtowers have unfortunately gone the way of the dodo. It makes sense given the new system of region-wide visibility, given that if an army should move through your lands, the chances are the populace will point it out to you. But having to physically choose the location and pay for Watchtowers was a nice little strategic addition to your empire management, requiring time and forethought to design effectively. It also created situations where you could potentially lose those Watchtowers should rebels or such take them over, but also it meant the enemy could use them against you should they claim that region. It was just a nice little addition and something I enjoyed, though I do know many others have not. The poignant, rousing, and at times, frankly hilarious general speeches of old have garnered a certain nostalgic charm from many an avid Total War veteran. Yet, they seem to have somewhat entirely disappeared. Yes, we still have scripted events where certain generals will give a certain speech, but we don't have the cinematic glory, the dynamic changes where our general would acknowledge the enemy we are facing and declare, "They have chariots, they shall meet our spears." These were not only useful for players who had just begun, and therefore may not know the tactics or unit roster of a particular army, but also were just hilarious to listen to. I for one shall certainly never forget the first time I met a mooncalf. The ability to customize and create regions in your own design is something that's sorely missed from the newer titles. As time went by, we saw the introduction of region-specific construction, but also we saw the reduction in construction potential. Whereas in the old you were free to build and rebuild as you wished, with titles such as Medieval 2 allowing you to build fortified military structures or more economic-focused populous areas. By giving the player the freedom to really design these as we wished, it gave a lot more variety and a lot more control of your empire. And though I appreciate inevitably you will end up, to some extent, specializing each region, it was still nice to have the option available and more importantly to change these on the fly. Whereas once an area may have been on your front lines and therefore required the defenses and military production necessary to hold off the enemy's advances, later on you could change this into a town and simply earn more from your taxation. All the while, should you be defeated and pushed back, you could then return it to that fortified structure. Something that you cannot do now, where regions are locked to a small selection of structures, and depending on your difficulty, what you actually build can be further controlled by the necessities of the game. Higher difficulty levels of course bring in penalties to your loyalty, and therefore your population must always be controlled. This often limited you by automatically reducing the small number of structures possible to guarantee that you have at least one to sort out public loyalty, further decreasing your ability to control your empire and expand in your own way. As you went about your campaign, you'd inevitably see the change of time and the progress of technology. And of course, as technology improved, as did the upgrades available to your units. With every upgrade, your units got a little bit better, their armor advancing with your empire, representing the march of progress, seeing your gambeson-clad spearmen gaining access to some proper plated protection. This advance in technology was, for a time, shown directly on the units themselves. Though the upgrade itself does provide the player with enough incentive to pursue them, as it does literally upgrade your unit, the visual change provided the incentive to take the next opportunity you could to wage war and see these improvements for yourself, allowing you to marvel at the progress of your empire. So those are the mechanics and systems from Total War that, although maybe not the best, I shall certainly miss. If there's anything you feel I've overlooked, feel free to give us a shout out. Definitely some honourable mention should be made to the multiplayer components, though to be frank, I am not the biggest multiplayer gamer. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's brought you a little bit of nostalgia if nothing else. Adios, lords and ladies. Until next time, peace out.